everyone. Welcome to the California Avenue podcast. I'm your host, Unconventionally Black, UB for short, and this is a Black-centered space and place where all are welcome and where we discuss unconventional topics unapologetically from lived experiences and perspectives. I'm joined today by Divina and Mel.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi,
Nice
ladies.
to meet you.
Yes, I'm so excited
Friday.
to have you guys. Yes, it's going to be awesome. Yeah, and today we are going to be addressing fuck boy behavior.
What the fuck?
And, you know, I don't want this to be something that is like, oh, I'm trying to target men in general. That is why I say fuckboy behavior, because I believe that it's a behavior, it's a mentality that can change and can be adapted. And I hope that after this discussion, people are more mindful of just how disruptive it can be to come across someone who adapts this type of mentality. So when we talk about this behavior, fuckboy behavior, we're talking about someone who is intentionally misleading or manipulative or controlling. This could be for like platonic relationships, but when I'm referencing that type of mentality, that's what I mean. Someone who's intentionally misleading or manipulative. I even would say that even someone who's doing it unintentionally, that once you pick up on those like patterns that you're doing something that's a little disruptive or isn't very if you're doing something disruptive and you're able to identify those patterns enough to know that it's a pattern, then I feel like that kind of goes hand in hand with being intentionally misleading or intentionally manipulative. But you know, it's a behavior. It's something that I've unfortunately had a lot of experiences with. I have definitely had the fuckboy mentality, fuckgirl mentality before. And yeah, it's just a human experience sometimes. So let's get into it, ladies. So what has been your experiences with this behavior?
Yeah, I guess I might need some help with, or it might be helpful if we came to a shared agreement of what fuckboy behavior is. Like, what are those behaviors? What do you think, UB?
Thank you. I am glad you asked. Well, when I think of fuckboy behavior, I think of someone who's lying or misleading to get the kitty, the meow meow. Whether that's for like casual interactions, dates, if it's like, with your intentions even, are lying to get comfort, meaning like you need emotional support, but you're not willing to hold space back. It's just all one-sided, or a delightful combo of both, which is I want the kitty and I want comfort and I'm not going to do anything else to meet your needs, just meet mine. That's what I think of. So what do you guys think about that definition?
Yeah, I understand that. I see that. Thanks for explaining what your definition is. I've for sure experienced that, like for sure. And it's definitely not fun to be on the receiving end. So yeah, especially when maybe expectations aren't like clearly spoken. That's when there's room for maximum misunderstanding and hurt feelings and all of that. So that's happened a lot. And I guess I've also had that kind of interaction with men, you know? Actually, I would probably say most of my interactions were like that. Just not very clear about what my intention was. So I guess I could be accused of having, that kind of behavior too. But I'd like to think that I'm better now, I'd like to think that I've cleaned up my act some. So yeah, I can go into specifics if you are interested in specifics.
I, only share what you're comfortable sharing. But I like that you said the expectations, because I think that's a big piece in this type of behavior is communication is lacking. So if you want to go into more about like how your past patterns have like shown that there's more of an expectation and not enough communication.
Yeah, sure. I think like one thing I'd like to say for sure is that I don't really view things anymore as somebody else being the toxic person in the relationship. I've come to recognize that their toxicity is a direct reflection of something that's going wrong with me as well. And so as I've cleaned my inner space up, I've also had cleaner relationships with the opposite sex. And so I will just say that just to start. But what was the question again? Sorry. Unclear.
You are good. You're good. Yeah, you got to it. And I love that you mentioned that, it's very two-sided, right? It does take two, and it does take some, like, it can lead to misunderstanding. So I was saying as far as like communication patterns, because to me, a lot of times with this type of mentality that anyone can adapt, there's like not a lot of communication. There's more expectations than there are communication. So if there's any patterns you've noticed in your life with that.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that. Yes, for sure. I was very terrible at communicating for most of my life, most of my dating life. So when I was 19 and I went away to college, I dated my first boyfriend, and like we had this thing going on, we were hanging out and stuff, and then it like dawned on me after 3 months that I don't know what our relationship is. Is it a relationship? Are we in this together? Like, what's going on, right? And so he was like, yeah, when I finally had the conversation with him, he was like, well, no, I very reluctant to like say that, give it a title. And I was kind of like, all right, well, I made it like an ultimatum, like either we have a title or this is over kind of thing. But yeah, so then he finally reluctantly said, okay, right? So then we had the title, and then he like went to study abroad at some point. But before he went to study abroad, there were like accusations going around campus that he was pursuing other women. And he got kicked off of campus for too aggressively pursuing another woman. And people came to me and like told me this, right? They told me. I don't think I ever confronted him about it. I don't think we ever had any kind of conversation about that, and so that just tells you, my state of mind and my way of like operating in the context of a relationship. Lots of unspoken stuff. And then he went to study abroad, and then while he was gone, I was wanting to move on, but rather than having the conversation with him, I just like moved on. And then he found out and we broke up, kind of a thing, which see, just an example of my terrible communication. I was so afraid of confrontation that I used another relationship to break up the first one. Yeah, so I'm not proud of myself, but yeah, that was my pattern for a little bit there.
Yeah, no, I resonate with that pattern. I was like, sounds real familiar.
Yeah.
Thank you for the accountability. I love that, because yeah, it is a two-way street. Davina, I definitely saw some reactions from you, girl. What's your thoughts?
Yes, well, I concur 1000% that it's a two-way street always. But as you know, you both have to be able to see your sides and take ownership and responsibility in order to make some progress, right? Because it takes two to tango. But with me, I guess where my faults were, and I'm learning this as I'm in my 6-year relationship, is that I need to state what it is that right off the bat, like if I could have gone back, right off the bat, I wish I would have just been like, hey, I don't really like that. What do you mean by that? Just much more communicative, because I wanted to seem like the chill girl, like, oh, she's like so low key, like, oh, nothing bothers her, But really, that came back to bite me in the ass, because now my ass is still being bit after 6 years, and I'm just like, this is a lot I could have avoided this had I just right off the bat, you know what I mean? They communicated, but I wanted to seem so mellow and chill that, it's taken like years and years, because my person is, he'll be like, where the fuck is this coming from? When really it's always been there, but I just didn't state it at the beginning. And I've seen that pattern in almost all of my relationships that I've been in. So that's a process for me.
Yeah, I resonate with you guys so much, and I'm hearing the common denominator with this is communication. And there's some like anxiety and fear with communicating needs. And I know from my own experience that I had like an insecure attachment style. Yikes. Where I would attach to these people, knowing the patterns, that they weren't really interested, that they were probably going to ghost me, that all of these things, but that didn't matter to me because I just wanted to have that connection still. I was afraid to let go of it. I knew that once I started like being more vocal, that this person may be like, okay, well, you're asking for too much, goodbye. And that scared me. So unfortunately, it made me stay in situations or be more comfortable in situations that weren't serving me. So yeah, I'm hearing that that's something we're acknowledging within ourselves. Yeah, and it does create can create a lot of room for assumptions and disconnect. Yeah, so we're kind of already in this realm of like, what do you think contributes to this behavior? We got communication, but I like to go in the nitty gritty. I like to get in there. So I want to know, like, what do you think creates like this mentality for these guys, right? That we've interacted with, where they are misleading, where they are maybe a bit manipulative in their dynamics, or they're lying, they're not admitting the truth, like those things. What do you think contributes to that, as far as like their history, things they've experienced?
Yeah, so I've thought a lot about this. And I've also read some stuff and watched all kinds of videos, because I've been through some stuff. And what I've realized, again, it's going to come back to me as well, is that like there are two general types of people. And I don't know, let's say I'm like, I am a certain puzzle piece, and I fit well with a certain other kind of puzzle piece. And the puzzle piece that I am is, or I have been, is like more tending towards like a codependent type, who has very low self-esteem, who bases her self-worth on what other people say and think about her, who kind of like sacrifices her life and forgets her life to take care of other people, and just somebody with very low self-esteem who acts desperately and out of fear and makes choices out of fear and stuff like that. And then the other puzzle piece is the person who lacks empathy, who, really cannot admit fault of any kind, take responsibility of any kind, who is manipulative to the nth degree, the kind of person who will lie, cheat, steal, and have no feeling about it, like no feeling of remorse or anything. And so, yeah, I've fit with those puzzle pieces over and over again. And so now I'm just working on changing the shape of my puzzle piece so I don't fit with those kinds of people anymore. But yeah, what contributes to the creation of a person of that opposite puzzle piece? It's, I would say, to a large extent due to their upbringing. I would say the kind of person who is put on a pedestal by their parents, the kind of person who is praised and they can do no wrong, they're never punished, they're made to be the center of attention, in their families. It's like a codependent who creates that other kind of person. So it's funny because it's like if their parent was codependent, then they have a tendency of creating the opposite kind of person. So let's just, I don't really like these titles like codependent, narcissistic. It's like people are, for example, every single one of us contains some aspect of narcissism. Like we're all on a spectrum. And so for that reason, I don't really like to use titles or like labels like that, but just for the purpose of this conversation, just to make it clear, codependent creates a narcissist. So I think, that's my, and at the root of it, it's like this person has very, very low self-esteem, so that's interesting too, because the codependent has low self-esteem, but so does the narcissist. And it's like, they just cope with it differently.
I concur.
Yes, go ahead, Divina. A message, but yes, go ahead, girl.
I think it's just wanting to fill something that can't be. It's lack of self-awareness too. I think, just like Melat was saying, it's filling something that they don't even know what is empty. For me, that's usually what that's just whenever I see it going on with my friends or when someone's approached me, it's just, I hate to, it's not like I'm judging them right away because we're all human beings with our shit, but I just can read it very easily. It just seems like this fuckboy mentality or fuckgirl mentality is just wanting to fill something that's there. It's not there.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You guys, I'm so happy you guys are here with me because that's exactly what my thought process is behind it. There's some generational aspects to it. It's the person that's never been told, like, hey, maybe you can do this a little bit differently. Putting that person on a pedestal without having any constructive things to say about them, because it doesn't have to be malicious, it just can be constructive. And it creates this void, and that's what I was gonna say, what Divina said is need to fill something, and it's I was gonna say it's poor impulse control to me, which we all have experience. And I will give my favorite example, which is French fries for me. It is my weakness. And I'm not afraid to say it. I'm addicted. But that shit is not good for me, it's not good. But it's so satisfying. And it's especially I would compare it to people who, well, even if it's emotional comfort, even if it's sexual comfort, it's it's like a craving to have some type of release, because there's something internally that is so disruptive that there needs to be some type of dopamine fix. And I think that's what's coming in when it's like you're not being considerate of another person that you're interacting with. I think that's coming from a I need to feel this, I need to feel this, that it's like you're not even aware that this other person has other things that they may need in order to have that a better engagement.
It's an addiction, you know, and I think both people have the addiction, both people, the fuckboy and the other person in the relationship. The codependent type person is also addicted, and it's like both people are like running away from their true and authentic selves. And I've definitely had that feeling of like, I gotta get my fix, you know, like I gotta distract, right? And that's how I used relationships for a long time, of like, gotta distract from my own life. I gotta distract from any feeling of anxiety. And, you know, I used other things to do that as well. But definitely relationship addiction is what I would say that I experienced.
Absolutely. There's my mom, she's super into this field, and it's sex and love addiction too. Like that's a whole thing as well. And yeah, it's just insane how common it is, but uncommonly spoken about too. Because it just seems like it's everywhere. But I definitely agree. It's something to distract yourself and not be able to sit down with yourself and feel those feelings. I think we're trying to run away from all that too. So that's a big one.
Yeah, exactly. You guys hit the freaking nail on the head, or whatever the fuck that saying is. Like it was just on point. Yeah, that is very much something that is hard to sit with. It's hard to sit with ourselves. That shit is not easy. Yeah, so that kind of brings us to the next point, which is, you know, something I hope everyone is aware of, that when we come on this podcast, I really want to make sure we spend some time on the solution, or possible solutions and options, because yeah, there are ways to practice relationships better. It's an ongoing practice. So how do we do that? How do we become more efficient in our interactions?
Okay, I don't mean to like go first every time, but
Girl, you're good.
But yeah, I would say it's so easy to like point at the fuckboy and be like, you're fucked up and I'm good. You know, I'm the victim here and you are the perpetrator, and everybody agrees with me. And, you know, but like the truth of the matter is, like, again, it's both people. And it took me a long time, because I was married and I was with this person that I married for 7 years. That's our time married together and dating. And like when that relationship ended, it took me so long to like really understand what happened. You know, it was like this whole thing. And I partially, you know, I was kind of like brainwashed, right? Because he did a lot of finger pointing. And so I just left feeling very confused, like, what's my part? What's his part? And I really wanted to see my part, because the fuckboy's part is much more easily spotted. I feel, because it's overt. It's like, it's in your face, but it's harder to see what my part was, and or it was harder. And I like got to the point where now, you know, 3 years out, I see that like what I was doing, my lack, again, like what Divina was saying, how, you know, not stating who I am or what I want or my needs clearly in the beginning, really set up the relationship for failure, you know? And I had been that way in every relationship, not just my marriage. And how difficult it must be to be in a relationship with a person like that. Because I also was like Davina was saying, like wanting to seem like the chill person, the go with the flow, like, you know, not easily offended, didn't really have much to say, not much perspective, you know? And but then like what would happen was he would do things and, you know, have certain behaviors and interactions with me that that felt like a violation to me, but I wasn't really aware of it being a violation, but I would still build up irritation and resentment, you know? And so then like eventually as our relationship progressed, I just built up this like permanent irritation with him, you know? And that's not fair. Like that's totally messed up. Like what the heck, man? So yeah, I've really, but in order to like state your needs and what you want, who you are and where you're going, you have to really know yourself. Like you can't just like, you know, come up with that if you don't spend that time really facing yourself, right? And sitting alone with yourself and building a relationship with yourself. And so I've been doing that in the last 3 years. I've been really like journaling. Well, what happened was like I hit like a rock bottom, which I won't get into, but I hit a rock bottom and I was like, okay, well, you know, what is it that I love doing? Like, you know, and I figured out a couple of things that I was into, that I had been into my whole life, you know, and I started doing those things more. And through the process of doing those things and like really listening to my own inner guidance of like, okay, what would you like to do next? What feels right? Who feels right? Like, oh, right now I'm noticing that I'm feeling this, you know, oh, wow, I noticed that when I went out and I was interacting with this person, my body was really tense and I was kind of like shaking. Like, what's that all about, you know? Just like taking that time and noting it down like in a journal over a period of time and like engaging with things that I'm interested in has really been really like hugely beneficial in the goal of getting to know myself. And now like I had a relationship earlier this year, and I was able to be a lot more clear, you know, like I just told the person like up front, hey, so I really like hanging out with you, but for me, I know that in order to be happy, I need to have this much time apart, you know? So like, I'm willing to hang out like twice a week. Um, and, you know, and then when we were in the relationship, like cause I have certain health things that I'm going through. And so I had to communicate like, okay, I need to eat regularly. And if the person, like if I was hanging out at the person's house and like he wasn't like picking up on my cue to like make a meal and have a meal, I would have to leave, like say, okay, well, you know, I think I'm gonna go now because I need to eat, you know, or I might bring my food over so that doesn't happen, you know, and then in the end, like the reason we broke up and I broke up with him, was because there's a certain like direction in my life that a certain philosophy that I'm operating under. And he pushed back against it, you know, and was trying to tell me it doesn't make sense. And I explained to him once, because, you know, you give people chances, right? You know, just cut them off. So I explained to him once, like, hey, yo, like I hear your perspective, but this is my point of view. This is how I'm going to be operating. It's not really up for discussion, you know? And when he didn't relent, you know, when he kept on pushing at me, I broke it off, which is huge. Like, because before, like the old me who was like desperate, right? The old me who felt so unworthy that she was desperate and she stayed in relationships way too long, you know, to the point of like absolute ruin, like, you know, like dumpster fire, you know, that's what I would used to wait until it was a dumpster fire to leave. I like at the first sign of like real incompatibility, I just broke it off, you know, which is huge. And I think, yeah, that's how I've handled, you know, healing healing that part of myself that fits so well with that other kind of person. And I would like to say also that this most recent person that I dated was not that kind of person. He was not the fuck boy. So that again is like a reflection of like, oh, okay, I've come a long way, you know? So yeah.
Bueno, yeah. That's great. That's awesome that you were able to learn from those patterns and be able to practice with sitting with yourself and acknowledging just the different just the different ways that your body is naturally responding to these interactions, because that is tough, but you learn so much if you're able to just regulate, breathe, take a step back, or take a step inward, I should say, and really have those conversations with yourself, questioning it. I question things externally all the time, like, what? Oh, that didn't feel great. Why is that? Because it leads to understanding, and it sounds like that is what you've done, and your relationships are like reflective of that. And I can see how that would be important for someone who's engaging in this behavior to practice that as well, because you can't make it up on spot the things that you want and need. That's something you need to sit with. And I think part of that is people not really sitting and understanding, is this an interaction that is like what I really want, or is this just that impulse speaking? Divina, do you have something to add, love?
Yes, honestly, everything that Mel said is just exactly my thought process behind it. And it is, I think it's just the willingness, some solutions for this is just a willingness to really sit down and be with yourself and be able to face yourself and everything. And it's hard for us to do that because, as I was saying, we don't like to sit and look in a mirror with everything that is real with us, like our insecurities. You know, we don't like to think that we're this or that or whatever. But I think that for me, it's been trying so hard to teach me things. And it's me and my willingness to really look at it and learn from it and recognize the patterns that I do. And if there's even a willingness to do it. Because I go from 0 to 1,000 really quick. And it always happens with the person that I'm with. Never, well, actually, no, that's a lie. I just found out how short of a temper I do have with I just personally don't like feeling disrespected, you know, because I mean, I would never do that to somebody. So when someone does it to me, it's like my expectations, like, well, I would never do that. But I have to remember that not everybody thinks the way that I think. And that's where I have to have, I don't know that compassion is the right word, but it's a very similar one, you know, for just them and what Mel was saying, you know, their upbringing or however they have lived their life. Because I do also believe childhood shapes so much of it, especially if, you know, it's avoidance as well, if the person's being avoidant from it. But I do think that this is a cliche, but it really does start with you and having this relationship with yourself, because, you know, when you only go with yourself. So you better make that one the best friendship you got. At least that's just what I say. And I think it's a continuous practice that we do in this life, just making this one, you know, the best one that we have.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you, Mel, for sharing, because again, I'm picking up on a pattern of sitting with yourself and sitting with the patterns that you may have. So in conclusion, I think that what we're gathering is sitting with yourself, making sure you're understanding what it is that you may want from these interactions before possibly getting in them. Even if it's during, it's okay to start practicing how to sit with things that you're noticing. If there's like an internal irritation that's happening, right, being mindful of that, allowing yourself to have compassion for having those feelings, and then finding a way to address it with the person that you're interacting with. I don't think that it's okay to manipulate people. As someone who's been manipulated, I think that's it's not a great characteristic. So figuring out the source of that, I think, is a big piece. What is it that you feel that you can't communicate effectively, or something that you're hesitant to communicate, and so you engage in this pattern instead? What is that? Why is that? And what are you fearful of? And of course that can go both ways for the person, where it's not, you're not engaging in that behavior, but you're still contributing to interacting with that person. Eventually we can like pick up on the things that they're doing that isn't aligned with what we want and leave. I definitely feel that, if it's not fitting for you and you've communicated that as effectively as possible and they're still not receptive to it, like kind of like what Mel was sharing, then yeah, it's about time to pack them bags and go. And that means for both sides, you have to be okay with going without. And I think that's the scariest and the most challenging thing, is like, oh, well, now I won't have this interaction. Well, love, you'll have so much more. You'll have peace and clarity and understanding, and you can make better decisions in the future for, walking away from something that isn't beneficial to the path that you're on. It's hard. It can be very challenging, and it's not an easy thing, but it's very much doable. And again, it just takes practice, just like everything else that we're discussing. It's a practice. It's an ongoing effort. And I know that majority we're speaking of like relationships as the dynamics, but I say that this behavior and things like this of this sort could be addressed for even one night stands, for like just people who are on some fuck buddy type situationship type interaction, because it's just respect at the end of the day, respecting of yourself, respecting of the other individual. So I definitely feel like that's a discussion too, but that's a discussion for next time. Yeah, so sitting with yourself, meditating is a good practice for sitting with yourself, and journaling, I believe, is what Mel mentioned. Very good for those kind of practices. Any other things you guys would like to add for solutions?
Okay, I guess I'll go first. No, but yeah, because it's, I don't know, for me, when I think of fuckboy, I think of just like some airheaded fool that just really is no thought in their mind that they're doing anything wrong, and that there's no willingness to even, do this work, or the work. So it is, because it is work. But I feel like, when someone just goes around sleeping with so many people, like, it's obviously them trying to feel something. But it's a solution for that is obviously being aware enough, and also having like this willingness to do something different, because a lot of people out there, they seriously just don't give a fuck, and maybe that's why they're called fuck people. I don't know, that's just like that's just, to me, like the number one thing. It's just like, okay, is this person even aware? And then second, does this person even want to do something different? And then that's where, you have to decide, do I want to engage in this? Because I read something when I was 14. It's just like, be careful. You don't sleep with anybody that you wouldn't want to be.
Message.
I read that when I was 14, and I was like, oh my God. So like, I am just moved by that forever, because I was just like, yeah, no thanks. But that's just my concluding thoughts, I guess, too. Just, some people don't want to do the work or just be aware or sit with it.
Yeah, I feel you. In that sexuality piece, I feel like there's definitely more to add to that. With sleeping with multiple people, or not sleeping with the one that you don't, or the person that you wouldn't want to be. Don't sleep with someone you wouldn't want to be with. Yeah. That's a powerful saying right there. But there's a lot to say about that. But I agree with what you're saying. Mel, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah. Your question was like how to like heal that or like address, is that what you were saying? Because that's what I thought.
Just any like thing you want to add for like
final
solution.
thought. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think another way to heal like the desperation that leads to interacting with people like that is something that I've told myself over and over again that I wasn't capable of doing, which is I used to tell myself, I'm not creative. I used to say that all the time to everybody. And in the last 3 years, it's slowly being revealed to me that I actually am very creative. And it was like me denying a certain part of myself for so long. But I feel now that creativity is a very like powerful way to get to know yourself and build relationship with yourself and build like self-esteem and like discover your inner world. It's like the creative expression is like it's like your inner world is being expressed, and through that activity you like look at what you've expressed and you're like, oh, that's interesting, that's me too, and you never knew that before, and there's no other way to know it, so I would say, yeah, that's a huge piece for me that I've been practicing lately, and I continue to practice. And any final thoughts? I guess just like in the healing process, I've had to learn not to be afraid to give myself time to like process interactions, so like when I have tried to break a pattern, if I'm like with that person, like I used to be, this is what I used to do. I would start to relate with the person, then I would like be with them all the time. I would spend lots of my time with them, and my life would be just put on the back burner. And that leads to a situation for me that causes a lot of like self-neglect. And I never have any time to, I never used to have any time to like process how I felt about things that happened, and I had no like tools through which to do that either. Like I wasn't journaling, so that's part of the reason why in this last relationship I was like, no, I need to have, just 2 days of hangout max a week, and then the rest of the time I need to have some alone time. And I feel like that was really powerful, to take some time apart, to journal about it, to sit with it, and to not like obsessively analyze everything that happened, but just, like, oh, is there anything that doesn't sit right with me, that I need to bring up to this person? And really just the healing process is about building relationship with yourself. And I feel like through, like I was saying before, I think I mentioned it, self-abandonment and self-neglect, it's like when I was doing that over and over again, I had such little trust in myself. And so, making a promise to myself that I was, from now on, like, I'm going to stay with you, like talking to my inner child, like, I'm going to be here. I'm never going away again. I'm here with you. I'm going to take care of you. You are safe with me. I love you. I see you. I will never abandon you. I will listen to you. I will hold, all the things that, really that I desired someone else would say to me, but no one really ever did. And so all those things that I wanted to hear, I'm saying it to myself, and then keeping that promise to myself you know, that's what builds trust, right? You build trust with yourself that way. And I think that's a really key part of healing from the compulsion to interact with people like that, you know? Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, and again, it is a complex topic, and there's a lot of fluidity in between, and it shifts. So yeah, thank you guys for being willing to have this conversation. It takes practice. So shout out to the people who are willing to practice, and shout out to the people who are on their way to being willing, because yeah, it takes time. All right. Thank you guys for joining us here on the California Avenue podcast. I'm your host, UB. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We drop episodes every Friday at 1 p.m. So please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification to stay updated on all future episodes. Until next time, peace out.